Hello, Michelle. I'm looking forward to be discussing inclusive leadership with you today. But before we begin, could you start by introducing yourself, perhaps a little bit about your upbringing and your education?
Yeah, thank you, Namrita. Well, firstly, I'm South African, and I grew up in a little town called Benoni. My dad was a policeman, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. I was the eldest of three, and also the eldest granddaughter. And I schooled in Benoni, but I went to university in Johannesburg. And what was a big milestone for my family was that I was the first in the family to go to university. I'm very proud to say now that I have two sons, and both of them are at university in Cape Town, and I've recently moved to Denmark.
Wow, that's lovely, being a first and a role model of sorts to your family as well. So, growing up, what did you aspire to be?
Uh, that's quite funny because my dad was a policeman, as I said, and growing up, as much as I had tea sets, I also had marbles, I had a bicycle, I had all of the toys that boys in the neighborhood would have, and I definitely thought that I would grow up becoming a policewoman. And then over the years, as I went through my high school years, I really wanted to become a psychologist. So I went in to do my BA in psychology at the University of Witwatersrand. But then in my postgrad, I got introduced to business. So I went and did a business degree. And that's how I found myself in the corporate world.
This is very interesting. From wanting to be a policewoman to
Yes.
psychologist and business, tell us more about your career journey.
So I started out with an internship. And that was with a consulting firm, but just spent a year there. And then I applied to Unilever on their management trainee program and thought I would be there for a few years and then move on. I, in fact, spent 23 years with them, had a really lovely career, and my last role was actually the head of people function for the Africa region before joining Maersk.
Wow, so 23 years at Unilever, and how have all these experiences shaped your path towards joining Maersk?
Yeah, firstly, I think when you take on a career, as much as you learn skills and as much as you get different job experiences, you also get many life experiences along the way, right? So life is happening, you're having children, you having to navigate this whole world of being a career mom and trying to grow your career and develop. And that can bring a lot of stress upon you, but at the same time, a lot of richness. And I always look back and think, actually, what I learned as a mom, the compassion and the kindness of being a mom, I could bring into the work environment. And what I learned on the most amazing leadership programs, I could bring to my children. So for me, rather than see them as two separate journeys, I realized actually both were complementing each other. And then moving on with my journey to Maersk, I realized that actually I needed to continue to learn and grow and be curious. What really stood out for me with Maersk is this massive transformation. It was so bold and so pioneering that I wanted to be a part of it. But I was also very cautious because I wanted to ensure that I was joining an organization that shared my values. And so when I learned more about the organization and the more I spoke to the leaders in the hiring process, I realized this is a company that I want to be a part of. I think Maersk's values and its purpose really connects with me, and what it stands for and the diversity that it brings and the richness and exposure globally was really, really awesome.
As a career mom myself, I can so relate to that. So let me ask you then, is the struggle real for you as well?
Oh, it's absolutely real, particularly in the early years. I think when you trying to grow your career and you have young children, then it's always a balancing act, right? When you're at work, you're wondering if you're doing enough for your children, and when you're with your children, you're wondering if you're doing enough on the work front. I think I had to learn some coping mechanisms, and I called it contracting. So I would be very clear with my children when I was going to be at work, but I would always say the weekends we get to do something special, and we can run all the errands that you need. And the same goes true for my leaders, you know, contracting with them, letting them know when I needed the personal time with children, but at the same time, what time I could give to my work. And just being very clear and honest and open has helped me with that.
That's lovely to hear, Mechell. So let's talk a little bit about your leadership style. What would you say are the most important traits that characterize inclusive leadership?
I will tell you what I've learned, and I also will tell you what people have said to me matters. The first thing that I've learned is authenticity. I think the more you show a true version of yourself and your own vulnerabilities, your own passion, your own strengths, and perhaps even the areas that you're working on and developing, I think people connect with that. And then they're more open and can tell you what it is that they're struggling with or what it is that they're aspiring to. So I think that has really helped me. I think people that I've worked with have always said to me, when leaders value them and have a sense of belief, then they feel like they belong. And I think inclusive leadership is about belonging. It's feeling that you are part of something bigger. And I certainly look back at my career, and whenever I felt like I belonged and my work had meaning, I gave so much more effort to that. So that's really what I would call out as my learning.
Interesting, Mechell. You're known to have most of these traits you just mentioned. You're also known to be an avid hiker, and you do it not just for yourself, but you also organize hiking trips. So tell me then, does relating to people come naturally to you?
Well, let me first say that I come from a very big family. So I recall big family lunches on a Sunday afternoon at my grandmother's home. So being around people does come naturally to me. I love company. Hiking can go in two parts for me. I'm very happy to hike on my own. It allows me to connect with myself, first and foremost. And it's just my downtime. But I've also found large hikes where I can connect with people from all walks of life to be the most interesting. It really has stimulated me because I've realized that I've learned so much about people. I've traveled because of the hikes that I've done. I've connected with people along the way, strangers on a journey who are hiking and have the same struggles that I do. So yes, in a way, hiking has allowed me to connect with many people around the world.
And let's go back to your journey, Mechell. So I'm sure it hasn't always been smooth sailing. What barriers have you had to overcome, and what learnings can you share?
I've had many firsts in my career. You know, first woman on a supply chain leadership team, but then also first woman of color on a board, and those firsts put a lot of pressure on you because you feel the pressure to perform, but you also feel a pressure to act as a role model and make sure that you succeed for those who are going to come after, and to make sure that you pull others along with you to experience that journey. So those have been my barriers that I've experienced. But I've also learned that some of what I perceived to be a barrier wasn't a barrier in the first place. They were also self-imposed. So now I'm learning to test that with myself. Is this something that I'm experiencing as a barrier? Or is this something that I could go and ask for help and share vulnerably? And it's not always easy to do, but I certainly am learning along the way.
A little bit of that self-inflicted pressure,
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
But you've always been an active ally, an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why do you believe it is so important to have diverse teams and diverse leadership?
Well, firstly, we're a global organization. We're a prominent organization. So I think society looks to us to pave the way. I'm really pleased that when I look at Maersk, I think we're an organization that is very committed to this agenda. And I think when it comes to the work that we do and this transformation journey that we are on, we need as many diverse perspectives as possible. We are pioneering. We've brought in so many unique capabilities to help us do that. And we have so many colleagues with rich years of experience at Maersk. We need to bring that all onto the table. But apart from the work that we've got to do, I find the richer your diversity in demographics, the more lived experiences get shared. And when you bring somebody's lived experiences to the table, that's when we truly can live our purpose and make a bigger contribution to society at large. So for me, it's super important that we continue on this journey.
I love that you mentioned lived experiences, because at the end of the day, we all just want to be seen, heard, understood, and belong. What kind of initiatives have you adopted in your leadership style that helps colleagues bring their best selves?
Connecting with people more deeply than just the task, and really getting to know everyone on your team is important. So taking time out for that is really important. But I also think when you're in the formal setting and you're in a meeting, leaders should listen more. So practice listening skills, making sure that everybody's voices have been heard, and probably even prompting questions like saying, is there anyone who has a different opinion or different perspective? Sometimes what I like to do is say, who's going to disagree with me? Like, as if I'm looking for a disagreement, because I want to test that we have heard everybody's voices. And so I think the more you do that, the higher the psychological safety in a team is, because people feel free to challenge, and not always challenge, but bring a different perspective, bring a richness to the debate or to the solution. So I think as leaders, we have a huge opportunity to create that psychological safety.
Thank you, Mechell. That's very insightful. All your tips from contracting to ensuring psychological safety. You've been very forthcoming and insightful with your answers. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namrita.